Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Beth and I am the Bookworm Trait. And I am filming this video in a rather weird way. So usually when I film in front of my bookcases, I stand up, so you mostly just get me and the bookcase. But I have been ill for many days now. And whilst I'm feeling better today, I don't want to stand up and film a video. So I'm filming this in my desk chair. So I'll try not to rock back and forth too much. But today I am bringing you a video where I am going to recommend books to the Townies of Willow Creek. If you didn't already know, if my name didn't give it away, I am a huge Sims fan and I'm also a book lover. So this is the perfect video for me, two worlds combined. Now there are lots of Townies, so I am just going to focus on Willow Creek today. I may do more neighbourhoods in the future. We'll see. So we're going to start with the BFF's household and we're going to start with Summer Holiday. Summer's traits are cheerful, active and outgoing, so she comes across as a very bubbly, friendly, nice sim. I imagine Summer Holiday would read YA contemporary. Really feel good, fluffy, happy, YA contemporary. Now this is not a genre that I am particularly a fan of, so it's quite difficult for me to actually recommend a book to Summer Holiday. So the only book that I've read that actually kind of fits this prompt is To All the Boys I've Loved Before. Ignore the butterfly on the spine. It's a decoration for my shelf. So To All the Boys I've Loved Before is obviously a very popular book, so you've probably heard of this one already. But this is a book about a girl called Lara Jean who likes to write letters to her crushes, and once she's written the letter, she puts it away in a hat box and forgets about it. But something happens and Lara Jean's letters are all mysteriously mailed to her crushes. I think Summer would really enjoy this book. I think the premise is just very much her. I think she'd also enjoy like reading this book and then getting all her friends together so that they can watch the Netflix film together. So there you go, Summer Holiday. Now Summer lives with two of her friends, hence why they are called the BFF's household. They're actually supposed to be in a love triangle, but we're not going to talk about how The Sims messed that up. That's not what this video is. So I'm going to move on to her roommate, Travis Scott. Unfortunate name. And Travis is outgoing, self-assured and a geek. So Travis is basically a very intelligent and outgoing person. Now I get the vibe that Travis would like books that aren't super hyped. And I feel like he would probably lean more towards fantasy or sci-fi. I don't see him reading contemporary. So the book that I would recommend to Travis is Quality Land. This is an adult dystopian about a country that is basically run by an Amazon-like corporation who automatically send you things before you've even realised that you want them. Now one day our main character receives something that he doesn't want, and this book is about his journey to try and return this item. This book is hilarious. It's so interesting and I literally cannot recommend it enough. It's like a funny episode of Black Mirror in a book. The final member of the BFF's household is Liberty Lee. And Liberty is a geek, she is a bookworm and she is clumsy. So she's basically me. I think Liberty would have very similar tastes to Travis. I think again she would probably stray away from super hyped books, and I also think she would lean more towards sci-fi or fantasy. Liberty is also part of the astronaut career, and I think Liberty would actually really like sci-fi set in space or sci-fi about technology. I don't really read either of those types of books, so it's quite hard to recommend something to Liberty. So maybe you guys can actually recommend something to me to recommend to Liberty. But what I will do is recommend her a book that I still think that she would like, that still fits into the sci-fi genre, but is more kind of my interest, my taste, which is dystopian. And I would recommend her The Book of M. So The Book of M is about a husband and a wife who are living in a time where there has been a pandemic which has caused people to lose their memories, and when they lose their memories this then affects the actual world itself. This husband and wife become separated and this story is about their attempts to find each other again. The reason I would recommend this book to Liberty is obviously there is kind of like a sciencey element to it. as well as like a fantastical element to it. But to be honest, I'm reaching, so let me know if you've got any better recommendations for Liberty. Sorry, Liberty. So we are moving on to everybody's least favourite household now, the pancakes. And we are going to start with Bob Pancake. Bob is a slob, he is gloomy, and he is a loner. Now, I don't know why, but I always get the vibe that Bob is the kind of person who thinks he is better than everybody else. I don't know what it is about those traits that makes me think that, but I have always thought that about Bob. I know most people despise Eliza, but personally for me, it's Bob. Now, I feel like Bob is the type of person who likes to read classics so he can look down his nose at people, but actually he doesn't read them. He either just watches the film or he like reads a synopsis and then tells people that's what he's read. So it's quite hard to recommend a book to Bob because I don't think he would actually read it. But the book that I would recommend is The Lonely Londoners. This is a modern classic and it is about the experiences of Afro-Caribbean immigrants in the UK during the Windrush era. The reason I would recommend this to Bob is because there isn't a movie. It's not super well known, so I feel like he would actually have to read it. It's also quite short and it's written in like a stream of consciousness, so it is very easy to read. And I just feel like he could just actually get through this one. If you're someone who wants to try and give modern classics a go, but it's not really something that you vibe with, like me, I would definitely recommend this book because it is really easy to read and very poignant. So moving on to Mrs. Pancakes, Eliza. Eliza is materialistic, she is neat, and she is a perfectionist. Now, if you don't know the lore of The Sims 4, Eliza and Bob are in a very unhappy marriage. And because of that, I feel like Eliza finds escapism through romance. Now, based on her traits, I feel like she probably goes for billionaire romance, and I don't know why, but I feel like she would read a lot of like taboo kind of stuff. So I'm actually going to recommend her a series. I'm going to recommend her, I think it's called the Filthy Rich Americans series, and it starts off with The Initiation. This is an amazing taboo rich people romance. This follows a couple who are basically in an arranged marriage. The male love interest is the heir to an American dynasty, basically. His family own banks, I think. Our female main character isn't really seen as an acceptable bride, so she has to go through a lot of changes to be deemed appropriate. Now, she's quite a headstrong character, and so she does fight against this, and this then catches the eye of her future father-in-law. It's very taboo, but this is a great series and I very much recommend it. Eliza would eat this up. So we're now moving on to the Spencer Kim Lewis family. So this is a family made up of a husband and a wife, the wife's dad, the husband's mum, and the husband and wife's child. I'm not going to be recommending any books to any of the kids in the game or any of the teenagers because I don't want to. I'm also less familiar with this family. I don't think they're very popular. I don't really know much about them, and I like to immerse myself in the Sims community. So take from these recommendations what you will. So we're starting off with Alice Spencer Kim, and she loves the outdoors, she is creative, and she is childish. So based on that, I think she would definitely be reading YA, middle grade, or very accessible adult fantasy. Fantasy due to the creative aspect. The book that I'm going to recommend, I realise I've left it downstairs and I can't be bothered to go and get it. But I do have the dust jacket. So I'm just going to hold the dust jacket up of this. This is The Nature of Witches. I haven't read the entirety of this book, but I have started it and I have enjoyed it. This is a book set in a world where witches are responsible for managing the climate and trying to stop there being any kind of natural disasters in regards to weather. Each witch is aligned to a season except for Clara, our main character, who is, I think she's called an Everwitch, and so her powers are aligned to all of the seasons. This means she's extremely powerful and should be able to help the witches deal with the effects of climate change on the weather. However, Clara finds that her powers are very dangerous and she doesn't want to use them. Out of all the recommendations, I think this one is just so spot on for these Sims traits. So even though I don't know a lot about Alice Spencer Kim, I'm pretty sure she would enjoy this book. So I'm going to move on to Alice's dad, Dennis Kim. Unlike his daughter, Dennis loves the outdoors. He's also neat and a perfectionist. Now, he strikes me very much as someone who would read adult contemporary or literary fiction, but I don't read that. So it's hard to recommend something to him. I feel like he would like The Goldfinch, but I don't know what that book is about, so I can't recommend him The Goldfinch. So the book that I am going to recommend him is If We Were Villains. This is one of the classic dark academia books, which I feel fits in with his perfectionist and his neat traits. I'm not sure how much outdoorsiness there is in this book, because I did DNF it. I still think he'd like it. If We Were Villains is a story told in 2 timelines. In one of the timelines, we are following our main character after he has left prison, following, I believe, him being accused of murder. In the other timeline, we are following him and his friends leading up to said murder. This book definitely wasn't for me, and it definitely isn't for everyone. I found it a little bit pretentious. There's a lot of Shakespeare in it, and as an English lit graduate, I've read enough Shakespeare. But I just feel like that's Dennis's vibe, so I think he's gonna like this one. So we're now moving on to Eric Lewis, who is Alice's husband or partner. I'm not sure if they're actually married. I think they are. And he is materialistic, a glutton and self-assured. So he is greedy. He's greedy with the money, and he's greedy with the food, and he's confident too. I think he would like epic fantasy, but a super long series of epic fantasy. Another genre I don't read, so it's very difficult for me to recommend something to him. I think he would really enjoy things like The Wheel of Time and Game of Thrones. I have read Game of Thrones, didn't love it. So I'm just going to recommend him those. I'm not going to explain what those are about because there's TV series for both of them, so they're quite well known. And I feel like his greedy nature would just make him move from one super long series to the next super long series. If you do have any epic fantasy recommendations for me that aren't the standard Brandon Sanderson, George R.R. Martin, whoever wrote Wheel of Time, please let me know. It is a genre that I desperately want to enjoy more, but I just don't. And the final member of the Spencer Kim Lewis household is Eric's mum, Vivian Lewis. Vivian is a foodie, she is family oriented, and she is cheerful. Now, again, I have a perfect recommendation for this. So Vivian needs a book that has delicious foods in it. She needs a book that has a big sense of either family or found family. And she needs a book that is ultimately uplifting. Obviously, she needs to read my favourite book, Stranger's Dreamer. I think I mentioned before, but the food rep in this book is delicious. There's also a lot of family elements in this book. And whilst it might be a stretch to say this is cheerful, I definitely feel that this is a very uplifting book that just makes you feel good reading it. So Strange Dreamer is about a guy called Laszlo Strange, who is an expert in the city of Weep, the lost city of Weep. Most people assume that Weep is a fairy tale, a legend, but Laszlo is convinced that it is real. One day, some people from the city of Weep turn up and they need help. Who better than our expert, Laszlo? Unfortunately, I have to be very ambiguous with the description of this book because too much information is spoilers. And so we are going to finish with the most iconic family from the whole of the Sims franchise, the Goths. I will only be covering Mortimer Goth and Bella Goth because I said no kids, no teens. So Mortimer is a bookworm. We love to see it. He's also outgoing and creative. I therefore think Mortimer would read, again, fantasy or sci-fi would be his preference, though he probably does dabble in contemporary. The only thing I think he wouldn't read is crime and romance. I think he would like things from acclaimed award-winning authors, and I think he would also really like books that are kind of a bit more experimental. So I would recommend him The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This book is going to be very difficult to explain, but it's basically the story of if New York became a sentient being and then had to battle an alien. It is as weird as it sounds, but it is absolutely phenomenal, and I I can't recommend this enough. This is a very unique book, and I think that would really appeal to Mortimer's highbrow, intelligent, creative leanings. And we are going to end this on the queen herself, Bella Goth. Bella is good, she is family oriented, and she is romantic. So for Bella, I think she likes romance. I think she just loves romance. I think she reads it all the time. But unlike Eliza, I think Bella likes more wholesome, feel-good romance. Now, unlike Bella, I don't really like that kind of romance. So I have limited recommendations for her. She's probably read this one already, but I would recommend her Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This is a lovely feel-good romance. We follow Chloe, who has a near-death experience, after which she decides she needs to get a life. So she writes herself a list of things to do, which she begins completing with the help of her maintenance guy, Red. I also think Bella's probably someone who would try to read diversely. So this is by a Black author. I believe she's also neurodivergent. And we have a main character who is plus size and also chronically ill. So I feel like Bella would really be into that. So those are my recommendations for the Townies of Willow Creek. If you have any recommendations for me or for the Townies, then please let me know in the comments down below. Also let me know if you'd like me to do other Sims 4 neighbourhoods, because this was actually a lot more fun than I thought it would be. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. And if you want to see more from me in the future, then don't forget to subscribe. And hopefully you'll come back and see me in another video soon. Bye!